and welcome. I'm Jo Stanley alongside Luke Darcy, Jacqui Felgate and Dr Nick Carr. Hello, guys.
Hello. Nice to see you, Jo.
Well, the Paris Olympic Games wrapped up just a couple of weeks ago, and what an amazing Games it was for us. We finished 4th overall with a record medal tally.
Loved every minute of the Paris Olympic Games, Jo, and the Australian performance was incredible. 18 gold medals, 53 medals overall. But I thought the way our athletes conducted themselves on the big stage, regardless of whether they had their best performance or not, was really inspiring.
Yeah, it was fabulous, and it's still going because 160 athletes are currently competing at the Paralympics, which is, of course, underway in the most beautiful city in the world.
Now, when I think of France, I think of one thing. No, it's not that. It's food.
Yes.
And so much food has been eaten during the Olympics and the Paralympics. 13 million meals, in fact. And that is so much brie and escargot.
Oh, not to mention those chocolate muffins that went viral.
Oh,
How
yes.
delicious did they look?
Well, food is what fuels us, and particularly if you're an Olympic athlete, it's pretty important. That is very much the focus of our show today. What is the best food for you, and how much food is enough?
Celebrity cook Julie Goodwin will be along to tell us about a fantastic new initiative from Beyond Blue that's getting everyone together around the dinner table.
And I look at the key ways to keep those all-important blood sugar levels in check.
We slice up the pros and cons of bread. I have to say, nothing is better than the smell of baking bread.
It is one of the great smells of all time, Jo. And I think of being a professional athlete in that sense that you never could get enough food in to keep up the amount of calories that you were burning. And having 4 pretty active kids, our fridge, you can't get enough food in our fridge at times over the journey as well.
Well, it's really important, isn't it, when we put in the energy to make sure we're putting the same amount out. And it's not just about performance, whether you're an elite athlete or an amateur. It's also about the effect it has on our health.
Melissa, it's great to see you. Every week it seems like you're competing in a race. Not long ago, you're at the International Cross Country Championships. I believe you're a primary school teacher. You're studying software engineering. You're taking a bit on at the moment.
Yeah, it's always busy, always looking for more things to do, but I love it.
Middle distance runner Melissa Duncan has never shied away from a challenge. But shortly after becoming the Australian 5,000 metre champion in 2019, a stint of training in Tokyo proved to be the greatest obstacle of her career.
It's a really big competition in Japan, the Ekiden running competition. It's basically a marathon from like A to B, and it's comprised of 6 athletes. So it's essentially a relay race. Each team is allowed to have 1 international athlete to run the 4th leg. And I was recruited from Australia to live, like eat, breathe, do everything with the team all year, just for this one competition at the end of the year.
What was the training experience like?
Yeah, it was full on. So the Japanese way of life and training is really different from what we know here in Australia. So I'm probably used to running about 120, like max 130 Ks a week. Over there, we're training 3 times a day and running anywhere upwards from 150 Ks a week. So the volume was quite a lot, and it was all on concrete as well. So there's quite a lot of damage that's happening to your body.
As if all this wasn't enough of a shock to the system, Melissa soon found her diet getting overhauled as well.
Because of the high volume, I got like a bit of a repetitive injury in my hamstring tendon. But instead of sort of taking some time off to like heal that, there was more focus on like, oh, the reason you've got this injury is because you're too fat. And like the way that you're going to heal it is to lose weight and be lighter, because it's less like stress on your body when you're running. So from then on, I was on basically like rations. So we had a chef that would cook out all our team meals, and I had to bring scales to dinner so that I was only allowed to have 150 grams of rice. And they were watching me.
It's taken several years for Melissa to grasp the impact of these drastic changes. But looking back, it's obvious they triggered a gradual decline in her mental and physical well-being.
I guess there were signs of just everyday, like things in my everyday life. You know, I wasn't really thriving. I wasn't really happy. I was never really like smiling or laughing or kind of enjoying my life. Second of all, I just didn't have any energy. So that was frustrating. I found myself like napping in the afternoons. In addition to that, I lost my menstrual cycle. And at the time, I didn't really think anything other than, oh, this is quite convenient because it's not something that I have to deal with now.
At the time, Melissa shrugged off these symptoms as the result of a demanding new routine and a serious case of homesickness. In fact, they were the early warning signs of a little-known syndrome that has derailed the dreams of countless athletes.
Relative energy deficiency in sport, or REDS that we call it for short, is caused by an underlying low energy availability. And that low energy availability is the result of essentially not eating enough for the exercise that we're doing. And therefore, we don't have enough energy for our normal physiological and essential processes.
Richmond Football Club performance dietitian Dr. Dominic Kondo has witnessed many players battling similar symptoms to those experienced by Melissa.
We do see some signs of it in AFL men's as well, but probably not as common as what we do in the women's. One of the first signs we often see is a loss of menstrual cycle or a dysfunction in menstrual cycles, and that's a really big sign. So we can probably diagnose it and pick it up easier in women than what we do men. Other signs are ones of fatigue, and that's a big part of it. And injury risk increases a lot too. So we often see bone stress injuries. So I've really seen athletes' careers be impacted by this, but also their health and well-being.
I was at a training camp at altitude about 4 weeks before the World Championships in 2019, and I just basically couldn't finish a session. I was in tears on the ground in between my 1K reps, and they were so much slower than what I was supposed to do. I was probably supposed to be running like 3 minutes a K, and instead I was struggling to run 3 minutes 30 per K. And that is not the level that I need to be competitive on the world stage. I just thought I was really unfit. And so I guess some of the symptoms do replicate how you would feel when you're unfit. So, I was thinking, okay, well, I just need to run more, and that's going to fix everything. But in fact, it was quite the opposite. I had to run less, eat more, which was not what I would expect the ideal preparation for a World Championship event to be.
It's great to see you looking so healthy, Melissa, and well, and back to your best. Can you tell us about your recovery from what you went through?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that happened overnight. It definitely took me months to get back to feeling my best and, getting my menstrual cycle back and stuff. But it was certainly a matter of when I started eating more and looking after my body more, I did start to notice that I could fit more into each day almost immediately.
We can all take lessons away from what we know about REDS. So yes, we see REDS more commonly in athletes, but I work with a lot of recreational athletes, people that enjoy running, people that are very active and often under fuel for what they're doing. Traditionally, there's a thought around what an athlete should look like, what an optimal physique should be. However, what we really know is that there's actually quite a range of someone's optimal physique. So yes, we know that athletes might perform better at a certain physique, but exactly what that is and how that changes between one athlete to another is what we're not entirely sure of.
It's only affected my performance for quite some time, and I think that that's what cost me the Tokyo Olympics in the end, because I was just not running my best like I had been up until that point. And I think it took me a long time to sort of get back on track, but it's not impossible. And I'm still not quite back at the level on the track, but I wouldn't write it off for my future.
Well, Joe, it's always made sense to me if your body's depleted, it's going to impact on everything else in your life. And the problem is there's so many mixed messages out there. You've got the rise of restricted diets coupled with the pressure to exercise more at the same time.
Yeah, well, that said, Darcy, less is sometimes more. And while the cost of living is forcing many of us to cut back, the younger generation are actually choosing to spend less and boast less about extravagant purchases and lifestyles. I love this.
Yeah, a trend called Underc Consumption, which is a nod to the influencer culture and influencing people on, particularly the younger generation, on how much they should buy.
So instead of sharing pics of expensive heels or trainers, it's becoming way more cool to share hacks on how to reuse items or, to share pics of those worn-in old trainers that you absolutely love.
It's an interesting shift, Joe, and a really positive one for me. I love the fact we can reject perhaps some of the challenges of social media in the past. And it's probably good for your self-esteem, it's good for your budget, and probably good for the planet at the same time as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. As I said, less is sometimes best, including when it comes to sugar. And here's Dr. Nick with all the facts about that simple sweetener that our body uses for fuel.
It feels like every day we hear about the perils of sugar connected to the obesity crisis and the surge in people with diabetes. But is sugar really all bad? First up, there are several different sugars, things like sucrose, fructose, lactose, but I'm going to talk about the one that's most important in biology, and that's glucose. Glucose provides the energy that makes our muscles and every other tissue work. In fact, at rest, the most greedy organ of the lot is, believe it or not, our brain. Yes, the old grey matter might be just 2% of our body weight, but it mops up a whopping quarter of all our glucose, even more in childhood. So, to power up this whole body, we must have heaps of sugar circulating, right? Wrong. All the glucose in our entire bloodstream amounts to 1 teaspoon of sugar. And that's because it's tightly controlled by hormones like glucagon and the one you've all heard of, insulin. Where do these hormones come from? Well, no one knew until the late 19th century, when a German scientist whipped out the pancreas from a dog and showed that the dog developed diabetes. Not great for the poor puppy, but literally life-saving for us humans, as it led to the discovery of insulin. Hyperglycemia, or high blood sugar, is when the pancreas is struggling, insulin can't keep up, and the levels start to rise. Get past a certain point and that's diabetes. Hypoglycemia, on the other hand, low blood sugar, is a major concern for those on diabetic medications, so monitoring is essential. These days, we have wearable patches which can give you continuous glucose readings, which is essential for people with diabetes, but there's been a bit of a fad for those without diabetes. Is that really necessary? Well, maybe if you've got pre-diabetes or a family history, well, I reckon a regular trip down to your doctor is all that's needed. Besides, you'd be much better off spending those thousands of dollars that it costs on some extra fresh veggies and my favourite piece of exercise equipment, the rowing machine.
Coming up, celebrity chef Julie Goodwin serves up a fantastic food-related initiative that's bringing everyone to the table to talk about mental health. That's right after this.
Jacqui, if you look back 10 years ago, people were not open about their mental health challenges. Fortunately, that seems to have changed in recent times.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you look at sports stars and celebrities, they're being more open is a really good thing, because you think that they've got these perfect lives on social media, but they have the same challenges as we do, and it really brings about a broader conversation.
We just saw American gymnastic legend Simone Biles win another 3 gold medals and a silver at the Paris Olympics, having pulled out of Tokyo because of her own mental health challenges, which is a great example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and Julie Goodwin, most people would know, is the first MasterChef winner and celebrity chef. She's also been really open about her mental health challenges.
Yeah, it goes to show, Jack, doesn't it, that even if someone's presenting with a smiling, happy face, you never quite know what's going on behind the scenes for anyone at any given time.
That's right. Julie is now an ambassador for Beyond Blue, and she's really bringing more people to the table now to talk about their mental health.
Why are you so passionate about being really open about talking about your own mental health journey?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, it's not a chicken and egg story. It's a circle. Your physical health and your mental health wheel around each other, and if one's poor, the other will end up poor. It's not, oh, they're unfit, so they're sad. It's not sad, so they're unfit. I think it's a circle, and I think that they impact each other in a very circular way. The reason I think it's important to talk about is because it's hard to talk about, and I think being able to be open about stuff like that just allows other people to be open about it. I have been given the privilege of having a bit of a voice, and that's come through a reality TV show. And that comes with a little bit of responsibility, and I feel like if I'm able to pay it forward, like some of the help that I've received from other people being honest and open about this stuff, if me talking about it can then help somebody else to go and seek some sort of help, or to evaluate where they are in their lives and whether perhaps there's something that might assist them if they change it, then, you know, that I feel like I have to do that.
You have a massive career in television, publishing, whilst also managing a family, and everything that goes with just simply being a human being. When was the first moment where you realised, I need to talk? I need to do that? What you just described, when did you go, I need to let this out?
Well, in terms of needing to talk to somebody to help me, it was a really dark time for me. I had decided that I just couldn't carry what I was carrying anymore. And I also couldn't offload it to anybody else because I didn't want to give anybody else that burden, you know. And, it was my husband who said, I don't know how to help you. We're going to go find someone who can. And that saved my life. At first, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It didn't fit with my picture of who I was to actually have to go and unburden this. There's so much shame. There is so much shame in these feelings, you know. There's so much shame in feeling hopeless. You know, we're raised that despair is a sin, you know, it's a moral failing. So to feel despair and to feel at the very end of the rope, that's not just awful, it is wrong, it is shameful, and it makes you a bad person. But as you travel on and you talk to people and you find other people that are like you, and everybody's like you, you know? Yeah. And even in a hospital, there are people that are just like me. Yeah. You know, I didn't expect that. I expected to go to a hospital and think, I don't belong here. Oh, I belonged there. I belonged there. And everyone there belongs here in the community, on earth, where they are. The one big thing that I've learned is that shame dies in daylight. Whatever you've got inside, whatever feels too rotten to show, that's the thing you need to bring out and air. And what you'll find is that you're not the only person with that shame. Put it down, you know, put it down, stop carrying it around.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. Cooking starts from the heart. We always talk about it, that cooking starts from the heart.
Yeah.
When you're cooking and you are just in your zone, how does that make you feel?
I always, and I didn't really realise this till I started, you know, writing cookbooks and putting recipes down. Whenever I'm cooking, I'm thinking about the people I'm cooking for. So it's cooking with intent.
Yeah.
You know, it's a mindful exercise. I'm mindful of who's coming to my table, of whether they have dietary needs or what they like or what they love, you know. If I'm cooking a meal for my family, I say, well, I better make sure there's enough garlic bread, or, you know, I don't want anyone to be disappointed if they don't get as many bits as they want. You know, I'm always thinking about the people I'm cooking for, and so it's an act of love. And when I say act, it's like you're actually doing something. So for me, it's been such a gift to have that to give, because so often we're left a bit helpless when somebody's in a bad place, whether there's an illness in the family or they've had a bereavement, or whether they're just struggling or they're too busy, or whatever hardship someone's going through. Having a meal delivered in a container they don't have to wash up and return is a relief. And so to be able to have that to give, instead of going, oh, wish I could help. Well, actually I can. In a very small practical way, I can help. And at the end of the day, everyone can cook. People, not everyone wants to cook, but everyone can if they want to.
What I love about what you do is you share recipes for life, but you also share wisdom for life. What do you want to impart on people when it comes to the Big Blue Table and your work with Beyond Blue?
I would just say to you, if you like having people around, put this occasion to it and have them around and just have the conversation. It doesn't have to be a deep blue conversation. It doesn't have to be a hard conversation. It can be lighthearted and beautiful, as long as it involves, how you doing? Where's your head? You okay? So just bring people together, start the conversation, let the people that you love know that you are a safe place, that you're a safe person, that you're an open heart.
You're a superhuman. Don't stop, don't change. Be exactly who you are, because we need more Julie Goodwins in this world. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi.
You know, I absolutely love Julie Goodwin. I think that her willingness to share her story around her mental health challenge is just so important. Because, you know, while the statistics about the amount of people that are affected by anxiety and depression can seem really alarming, I think it's so comforting for people to understand that they're not alone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Jo. And the same applies to women's health, particularly areas like menstruation and menopause. I mean, ridiculous though it seems, there's still this shame and embarrassment talking about these topics. So there's a real move to kind of wipe that out and have us all talking about them more.
So we hear a lot about mood swings and hot flushes when it comes to menopause and perimenopause, but there's a real link to mental health as well, isn't there, Dr. Nick?
Yes, there is, Jo. We know that women going through menopause have a higher rate of things like depression and anxiety, even if they've never suffered from them before. And it's all about changes in estrogen levels, and it's tied up with those sort of emotional impacts of the life events that tend to happen around that same age.
Well, one of the other things that women going through menopause, in fact, all of us at any age need to stay on top of, that is bone health and mobility. And here's Vicky Little with a really hip workout.
Our hips are really just ball and socket joints. So, like any mechanism, if they don't move regularly, and if you've got bad hips, you'll know what I'm talking about, they can get really painful or even lock up. If you've got tight hips, you could be sitting at a desk way too long, and that can be easily fixed with some active stretching. There's lots you can do to help your hip mobility, and this here is one of my faves. The stretch band works on resistance and is great for strengthening the muscles in your hips, thighs, and back sides. All of those big muscle groups that we put through their paces every day. You'll be surprised that you can get a sweat up after just 10 of these. When you think about it, the hips support the entire upper body. Even our posture relies on hip flexor muscles. And if there's a weakness, it affects our alignment and well-functioning hip joints. You only need to be sitting for 30 minutes to feel the tightening in your hips. It's like your muscles are losing their elasticity. And these moves aren't just for the sake of the hip. Injuries in the lower back or the knees can come from hip joints that aren't strong enough or don't move well. So get out of that chair, walk away from your laptop, maybe invest in one of these. Your hips will thank you for it.
Coming up, Paralympics commentator Emma Vosti gets a gold medal makeover, but up next, Heinzie puts some buns in the oven.
Sometimes there are special requirements for storing meds. Number one rule, keep medications well out of reach from kids. Some in the fridge, some away from sunlight and high temperatures, and some are okay on the shelf. But one thing is almost universal, keep them dry. So if you're storing them in the bathroom, keep them in a watertight container. If you lose power at home, grab a cooler and an ice pack and keep your medications inside. Try to only open it when the dose is due, just to keep it as cool as possible. Some medications can be stable outside of the fridge for an extended period of time, like thyroxine and insulin. But if the power's been out for a couple of days, check in with your pharmacist to make sure the medication is still safe. I'm forgetful. I love a pill box. Just as long as it's dry and airtight, it's a great way to store medications. If you're taking multiple medications, the labeled versions with the weekdays are great because you know what you've taken and when. But check the packaging. Some meds need to be kept in their foil and away from light.
Big thanks to pharmacist Naomi Perry. Nick, when it comes to blackouts, immediately my mind goes, can we save the food in the fridge? But not often do we think about the shelf life of our medications.
No, well, we have become pretty reliant on our household appliances, things like fridges and dishwashers. But it turns out our home helpers, they're not just buzzing with electricity, but also a whole microbiome of viruses, bacteria and fungi.
Turns out the microwave's back under the microscope again. There was a long-held belief that anything that was put in the microwave would automatically kill the dangerous bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella, but apparently that's not the case.
Yeah, and that particularly applies to microwaves that are in shared use spaces, offices, things like that. Some scientists in Spain, they've taken swabs from home microwaves and shared use ones, and they found not just bacteria, but ones that are dangerous to us, and amazingly, they're resistant to heat.
Now, that is staggering to me. I thought everything you put in the microwave just nuked all the bacteria and life out of it.
Yeah, well, it turns out it's not just cockroaches, but some of those bacteria can survive. So really important, clean the microwave as well as everywhere else in the kitchen. But, of course, we do need some bugs for our foods, because otherwise we wouldn't get things like yoghurt, bread, or even beer.
Now, Nick, as you know, I'm a celiac, which means all regulation bread is out of the question for me, but there's some great gluten-free alternatives these days. And on that note, here's Luke Hines to sort the wheat out from the chaff when it comes to bread.
Ellie, who would have thought bread could stir so many emotions? For me, it is so much more than food. It's a symbol of comfort and warmth. Everything from the process of making it with the kneading and the baking and that smell of a fresh loaf, there is nothing quite like it.
You're so right, Luke. Whenever I speak to clients, bread is one of the first things they say, please don't make me give it up.
But it can be confusing. There's so many different types out there.
So many to choose from. We're just looking at the top 4 most popular breads today. Brands are trying to use buzzwords and jargon to make their products seem like the healthiest choice.
Let's kick things off with white bread, Ellie. This is my childhood in a loaf, and it was in my lunchbox every day without fail. But is it actually any good for us?
Well, it's a highly refined bread, which means in that process we lose a lot of the nutritional value in the ingredients. And in that process, it also becomes a high GI or high glycemic index product, which means we have high blood sugar response when we eat the bread, and then we have big blood sugar drops after eating the bread. And over time, that not only impacts your quality of life, but your weight as well.
One of the biggest concerns I have about white bread is that it's really low in fibre, which means it's not really great for our gut health. But I think it stood the test of time because it's readily available, it's very cost effective, and it has an incredibly long shelf life.
And it's palatable. People enjoy the soft, white, fluffy texture of white bread.
Next up, let's take a closer look at wholemeal. Now, it looks similar to white bread. They're both made from wheat flour, but the wholemeal is from the whole wheat, which has been ground down into a fine flour, but it gives the loaf a much browner consistency and more of a dense, earthy taste.
Yeah, so it's still quite a highly processed bread, but it is slightly higher in fibre than white bread. And that's a good thing because fibre is going to support regular bowel motions, and it's even good for cardiovascular health and hormone health. But a pro is that it is higher in nutrients and minerals, so B vitamins and minerals like iron and magnesium. So in comparison to white bread, it's still a better choice.
Let's take a look at whole grain. It's similar to wholemeal in that it's made on the whole wheat grain, but it also contains other non-wheat grains, things like oats, barley, quinoa, and even seeds.
And Luke, the more seeds and grains, the better. They contain healthy fats, they contain a host of minerals. They're also rich in prebiotics, which are a food for the health-promoting bacteria in our gut microbiome, which we know influences our broader health.
I'm a big fan of the texture, but it is important to note that whole grain and multigrain are very different. Whole grain is made on a wholemeal base, whereas multigrain is made on a white base with the seeds and grains run through it.
It sounds really confusing, but this is where learning to look at the ingredient panel on your packaged bread can be really helpful. And at the top of that ingredient list, you want to see wholemeal flour listed.
This next one is definitely my favourite of the bunch, sourdough. And the big difference here is that instead of using yeast for it to rise, it actually uses a starter culture, but it also gives it a gorgeous, unique taste.
That fermentation process also means that it creates probiotics, and those probiotics in the sourdough make it another great choice for our gut health. In that fermentation process, it also helps to break down FODMAPs, which are a type of carbohydrate. So for people with FODMAP sensitivity or IBS, they may actually tolerate sourdough bread better than the others.
Are there any cons?
Well, it tastes so good that it's very easy to overeat. It's also expensive. It's hard to make, it's time-consuming to make, which makes it an expensive bread.
And not all sourdoughs are created equal. Some are made in just a mere few hours, others over the course of a week. So get to know where you're getting your bread from and get a real good quality sourdough. There's no denying that there's plenty of options out there, Ellie, so what's your take home?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the heavier, more dense the bread is, the better choice it's going to be. We've talked about fibre a lot today, and that is important because the higher fibre the bread is, the more satisfied you'll feel. And the more satisfied you feel means that you'll make better food choices later in the day.
Well, it looks like we'll be leaving that white loaf aside for the time being, except for maybe a kids' party with fairy bread or even a sausage sizzle on the weekend. Thank you so much, Ellie.
That sounds about right, Luke. It's what you do most of the time, not some of the time, that counts.
The goal of every parent is to raise a child that's happy and healthy. But kids don't always come to the party. Even babies who have been exposed to a wide variety of solids can still go through phases of fussy eating as they get older, making it tricky to ensure they're getting all the beneficial nutrients. With a dedication to children's health for over 50 years, Pentavite is Australia's #1 children's multivitamin liquid brand. The Pentavite Gold Multivitamin Plus Iron liquid for kids contains a comprehensive range of 14 vitamins and minerals important for supporting children's healthy growth and development. It's suitable across ages 1 to 12, and the delicious tasting natural watermelon flavour means it's ideal for fussy kids. The liquid format helps for ease of delivery via syringe, either directly into the child's mouth or through adding to a teaspoon of milk or fruit juice. The formula is 99.5% sugar-free with no artificial colours, flavours or sweeteners. Baby Teddy teaches me something about himself every day. As he grows and changes over time, one thing is consistent. We will go above and beyond for him, especially when it comes to supporting his health.
Sarah Davison there with some fantastic tips for keeping our kids happy and healthy, which honestly, that's all we want, isn't it, Jack?
Well, it's easier said than done, isn't it, Jo, particularly with social media. And we've spoken about this before in the US, where they're looking at putting warning labels on social media platforms to tell young kids of the potential danger to their mental health.
And it's a step in the right direction, Jack. A report by the Australian Council for Educational Research has found that Aussie classrooms have become a digital battleground, especially in comparison to other countries.
Yeah, and interestingly, 1 in 5 teen girls report feeling anxious when they don't have instant access to their device. And do you know what? I can feel a bit that way too.
Well, government schools have now banned phones nationwide, and warning labels on popular platforms could make a difference, because when you think about it, because of social media, bullying can now happen outside of school hours.
Yeah, agree. And girls need guidance and women to look up to. And as a mum of 2 young girls, makeup artist Jacqui agrees. She's with presenter and businesswoman Emma Vosti.
Emma, you're a TV presenter, businesswoman and mum to the amazing Jack and Louie. Tell me, what does beauty mean to you?
It's definitely changed, Jade, as I've gotten older, but I think for me, beauty is whatever it means to you to feel good. So for some people, nails, tan, hair, whether it's moving your body physically or it's making yourself look good, I think just whatever makes you feel like your best self, to me, is how I would define beauty.
I've loved watching you on the past years presenting on the Royal Children's Hospital Good Friday Appeal. And like so many, you've actually been there firsthand and encountered the care yourself. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we are so lucky, I think, in Victoria, in Australia, to have the Royal Children's Hospital. Our oldest son is Jack, and he was born with a unilateral cataract. We found that out when he was 1 week old.
That's really hard.
It was really, really hard, but thankfully we picked it up.
Yeah.
So he was effectively blind in one eye, and then he had an operation at 9 weeks old at the Royal Children's Hospital to remove that cataract, and now he wears a contact lens every day. He wears an eye patch every day for 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Because your vision isn't fully developed until you're around 6 to 7 years old. So we have all this time to make up for that vision development that was lost when he was a baby, which is massive. And I would just encourage anyone to get your kid's eyes checked if you are unsure of anything, because having that time to give him the best vision possible has just given him the best chance.
bringing it back to beauty, of course, I've seen you have makeup artists do your makeup and your glam, and I've seen you do your own, which you nail.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
No worries. But tell me, what is one skill you really want to nail?
I think for me, I know how to do on-camera makeup, but I'm a one-look wonder. I've only got one trick. I'm confused by all these trends with blush and all the cream ones that they use now, so I need your help.
Yep, perfect. That is blush placement. So I will explain step by step how to achieve that. Where we apply the blush is key to how it suits your face. It's about applying it to the high parts of your cheek and back into your hairline, and this will lift your face and be really flattering. I like to apply it to the hand first and then buffing it in with a buffing brush and then blending with a sponge or your finger, and then or a little over the nose. That's a really spring kind of makeup look. You kind of just skim the nose and then blend it. The key to this and the key to keeping it on is a blush powder. So this is a Maybelline Fit Me powder, and once again, pop your brush in and just work it into your skin and then just set it. And that layer, it's just one tiny step, but it will last. You'll jump in the car, the kids will be in the back, you'll be going to work, and it'll still be there.
Amazing.
We all know someone or have been that someone experiencing allergies, whether from pollen, pets or dust. But while we're quick to treat symptoms like runny, stuffy noses, as well as sneezing, we often neglect the eyes that can also be affected by allergens. In fact, 7 out of 10 allergy sufferers also experience itchy and watery eyes, but many don't treat them. Zaditen eye drops offer a unique 3-way action to treat allergy eye symptoms, helping to reduce redness, relieve itchiness, and decrease swelling within minutes for up to 12 hours. Since allergies don't discriminate, Zaditen is suitable for anyone 3 years and up. Plus, they're available in 2 convenient formats, drops and preservative-free vials. That's why they're the #1 allergy eye care brand in Australia. While it doesn't knock you over like other conditions, there is no arguing that allergies are uncomfortable and frustrating. Help is available, you just need to know where to look.
Well, Dr. Nick, what brilliant sunshine we're enjoying today, and I can't believe spring is just days away. Happy days, in fact.
And one of the reasons we feel so fantastic being out in this kind of glorious sunshine is because of that most amazing of chemicals, serotonin. And it's known as the happy hormone, as you know, because it does make us feel better. But now there's some interesting new research which shows that it actually helps us deal better with negative emotions and experiences.
So you're referring to a recent study, as you say, that found that serotonin not only makes us happier, but for example, if we're in a situation where we're a bit stressed, say losing money in a game, we cope better with that too.
And it's really important, this, and we hope maybe it'll lead to better understanding of what depression is all about, maybe even to better treatments, which would be fantastic.
Well, Nick, my happy place is with my children, including making, say, a pizza with them on a Saturday night. So here's Zoe, who's proving that pizza can also come with a topping of health.
There's no arguing that pizza brings people together. It's the universal comfort food. But if a greasy slice is not your thing, then my wholemeal pizza with tomato, anchovies and goat's cheese will deliver on health and taste. Preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius and start with the dough. Wholemeal self-raising flour is a high-fibre alternative, and sifting creates a lighter, airier base. Ricotta cheese adds a smooth creaminess, stopping the pizza from drying out. I'm rubbing the ricotta into the flour till it resembles breadcrumbs. Then slowly add milk to form the dough. Patience is key. Kneading is essential to give the dough elasticity and strength. This recipe makes 2 medium or 4 small pizzas. Thickness is your choice, but I like it thin and crispy. Time for the fun part, toppings. Spinach has a fresh, earthy flavour, offset by the tangy tomatoes. Anchovies are the controversial choice, but I can't get enough of their salty, deep savoury taste. Also giving a boost of omega-3 fatty acids. Goat cheese and extra virgin olive oil round out the toppings. Then into the oven it goes. 20 to 25 minutes should do the trick. But the best sign will be when the pizzas are gloriously golden. The end result is just one small part when it comes to the joy of pizza. The experience of making it is just as good. But for those who say it's better cold, I do not believe you. Get Nourished is brought to you by Go Healthy. Support heart health, eye health and brain function with Go Fish Oil Triple Strength. It feels good to go healthy.
One of the things I loved the most about the Paris Olympics was their incredible use of the iconic landmarks of Paris as we look forward to the Paralympics as well. It was truly beautiful.
It was fabulous, wasn't it? Because instead of building all those massive new stadiums, they transformed their famous icons into amazing sporting venues.
And it really did show off the city to the rest of the world. I mean, not that Paris really needs the marketing, let's face it. We get it, guys, you're gorgeous.
Well, we all know the next games are LA 2028, and they've already incorporated the famous Olympic rings into the Hollywood sign. And perhaps they'll look to Texas and technology when it comes to building the Olympic Village.
Well, Jack, in the Texas city of Georgetown, they are building an entire neighbourhood out of, get this, 3D printers. Wow. Find this story remarkable. It takes 3 weeks to print a one-storey house, and they've built 100 houses already from 3D printing.
So the roofs and foundations are built traditionally, but all of the walls have been poured using 3D printers. And I don't know, I still can't get my head around a 3D printing technology. So I just think this is amazing.
I agree, Joe. And the scale is just extraordinary. It's been hailed as more sustainable because of the reduction in waste and also because there's a huge reduction in the need for human person power.
Well, they say everything is bigger in Texas, boom, boom, except maybe in the future not the construction industry and jobs.
Yeah, great point. Well, that's all we've got time for today. We're going to be cheering on our Paralympians in the coming weeks and wishing them every bit of success.
Tune in to House of Wellness Radio every Sunday with Luke Hines and Gerald Quigley.
Big thanks to Dr. Nick Carr, to Jacqui Felgate, to Joe Stanley. Thanks, as always, to our friends at Chemist Warehouse. Thanks for joining us on the House of Wellness.